For this video, this is the Hatsan flash. Last time I put a regulator in here and I tried to fix the small leak that it had, and in the process they seem to have made it worse. So I ordered some parts, and I believe the part that's bad is going to be this little guy right here. It's part 2313. And this white gasket or seal or whatever it is, I think that air's getting past that as well too, so we're going to try to seat that a little better. There was a new one in the kit, and I was able to find this exploded view on Hatsan's website and then just kind of make it bigger. And then I found this O-ring kit on eBay because everything on the Hatsan website was back ordered, out of stock. And this is really nice because this chart gives you all the different sizes of what you'll need and what's included in the kit, and it's nicely packaged right here. So I'm hoping that this will be a fairly easy repair, and that we'll be able to get this thing up and running and find out how many shots I really get with the new regulator installed. So now we're going to take the air tube off, and that is the 2.5 millimeter and a 3 millimeter set screws right here. Also, because this has been leaking, there's no air in it. But if you did take the air out, you would do that using this little bleed screw right here that you can see that it's empty. Now, just for good measure, I'm going to go ahead and loosen that, even though maybe this gauge could be not accurate, or there could just be enough pressure in there to cause me an issue, but there wasn't. And then, because I've had this off recently, that's going to thread off really easy. Now I'm going to take this part out, and I'm just going to use 2 Allen wrenches just in opposite holes from each other and grip them kind of tight, and you should be able to spin that out. The spring, and then there's the valve that should just pop out. And then there's the little white plastic part in there. You just take an Allen wrench and just gently try to find that edge and just kind of push from all different directions all around it, and you should be able to get that push out of there. So I'm going to need a smaller Allen wrench. There it is. So one thing I'm really struggling with on this is there's actually a lot of debris in there, and it's really hard to get it to focus, but you can kind of see it even through the camera here. And I am sure if I don't get all that garbage out of there, that this will all be for nothing. So I don't know how they got in there. I'm going to use some compressed air, use some of the bore swabs, just some cotton, use some Q-tips. I already tried the Q-tips and it really didn't budge it, but that needs to be removed. All right, I finally got that cleaned out was really challenging. I used this guy, but the end of that must be really sharp because it cut that black plastic off in there if I kept on running that in. I also ended up using a wire brush, which I know is probably the worst thing you could really use, but that stuff wasn't coming out. So I was really careful with this. I used some Ballistol cleaner and ready to put this back together. Another part of this is kind of this mystery on this little white part here. And one side, the side to the right, is a little thinner than the side to the left, and it has a little bit of a kind of a bevel. And my question is this part, I think it's supposed to go in like this and it seats like that. But it's got to seat well or it's going to leak. I think that's the whole problem. But I don't think this other side has any bevel to it at all right here, so I don't think it goes this way. But then it almost looks like that seats in there further. Actually, I think it's the other way around. So what I'm looking at is there's a gap right here, and you really can't see it on the camera, but let's see if I can get this to zoom in. There we go. You can kind of see how that is, and then when I turn this around, you can see that looks like it's in there farther. So I think that's actually the way it goes. Like that, you can still see a lot of that dome cone. So this side is flat right here. And this side is kind of domed on the outside. So it's looking like this pin goes in on that flat side. So that was the old one. That's the new one. The new one looks slightly larger. I don't know if it's just that's hardened up and kind of oxidized. And that goes right there on that groove. Put just a little tiny bit of silicone grease. It's way more than I needed. Probably gonna be, it was really difficult to get that off. I use this little tool here. Hope you have really good eyes because it's not easy to see. And hopefully I don't lose this one. So here we go. I'm just kind of get it started, and I don't know, might have to do this off camera. This will probably be more challenging than it should be. Yeah, basically useless footage right here. Oop, 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 oop. Okay, there we go. I got it. There's the new one. All right, so as I looked at that again, I'm pretty sure it's that flat side that seats into that better. Try to get it square on, and then if I turn it around, and I feel like there's more space for that tapered area to go in. So I'm going to go with the flat. Go with the flat toward that valve, and then I'm going to use this cleaning rod just to kind of set that in there, and then I'm just going to guide that in there slowly, but I need to put a little bit of silicone grease on that too, just to make sure that we don't have anything hanging up on that. All right, so just gonna gently guide that thing there. And I know that this was kind of hung up before, and I don't want to ruin that brand new O-ring that I put on, so I'm just gonna try to gently, well, that was so much better. All right, now I seen a video where somebody used a hammer and they kind of just tapped that in there to seat that. I'm gonna do that a couple times just to hopefully make sure that's seated. I don't want to get too crazy on it. I don't want to break anything or make it crack, but just okay. I think that's good. Now I'm going to put this part with the spring back on, and that just make sure that goes over the pin. And just tighten that back up with the 2 Allen wrenches. The holes from each other don't need to be real tight, just snug. Now I'm going to find these 2 rings out of this kit, put it back together. Well, it's all put back together, and despite doing everything I felt like right, it still seems to be leaking. Not as bad by any means. And I replaced everything on this that I could. The only thing I'm wondering is that spring. I had that spring go bad in my rapid air weapons. It was depressed by, I don't know, 3/16 of an inch more than it should have been. And that caused it to do the same kind of thing. So I might order this guy and a new spring, see if that fixes it. But it might settle in. I'm going to shoot it a bit and see if that valve just seats later, and maybe it'll all be good. So after putting the whole gun back together, it still leaked a little bit. It wasn't as bad, but I decided to go ahead and tear it apart one more time when I have all the tools out. This time what I did is I found that this part here seats into this part here that's like a nylon white material with a O-ring on the outside of it. And I came to the conclusion that it has to be this tapered part on the valve pin wasn't seating into this right. That's the only way it could leak the way it was leaking. So what I did is I took, and I have a spare one of these, so I took this part right here and I used a Dremel tool and I ran that to kind of give it that same shape as that air valve. I put that on the Dremel and I ran that, not a lot, as I didn't want to destroy this part because it's just made out of nylon. Then I took this part and I actually put that in the Dremel as it would chuck up, and then I spun that part also in this so that it would conform to exactly the shape of that. And then the other thing I did is I found that this spring right here that goes over that, I feel like that spring isn't as long as it should be anymore. Like it's just been compressed for too long. So what I wanted to do was find some kind of washers I could put on the back of this to make that more tight. And what I ended up doing is I took a part of one of these gun cleaning rods, happened to be just the right diameter to go over the top of that, and I cut off, I don't know, tiny bit, maybe an 1/8 of an inch worth, maybe 3/16. And I made a spacer that makes this spring even tighter. Between those two things, even bother putting this back on the gun yet because I was just annoyed with it leaking. But it's been 2 hours, 3 hours, and we're still holding. That's the lower pressure due to with the regulators. That's the regulator pressure. But it was leaking out of this porthole all the time, slowly. So I believe I've got it fixed. So what I need to order is I'm gonna order a couple of these new springs, this whole pin assembly, and this white nylon part. Those were the things that were making this leak. The most common thing that leaks is this big gasket right here, a 2316. I've seen a few videos on YouTube that talk about, you know, that was the simple fix, and that would have been a really simple fix, but I haven't really seen anybody tear this apart and talk about it a whole lot. Sometimes YouTube doesn't really show you the videos that you need to see when you search something, but so maybe somebody's not. That fixed mine though. Just dremeling out this little nylon piece with something that has about the same shape as that pin, and then adding a spacer there so that spring has to push a little harder, and it seems like it's fixed, and I'm very happy about that. So there it is, all put together, still holding there. I think we finally got that. So here we go. Can't really, you can see it's holding the air. Been about 3-ish hours, I think, at this point. Can't hear anything leaking. It doesn't look like anything's changed. So it's that air valve. I'm not even sure what that part's called. I should find the official name. So if you have one of these that's leaking, and it's not that really simple gasket that's right there, and you're frustrated with it, it's probably that air valve. Hopefully this helps somebody avoid some frustration, and definitely making repairs to these air guns is a ongoing exploration and learning process, and they're all different a little bit. Hopefully this is helpful. Thanks for watching.